do the introduction a couple minutes ago, so may not be well prepared, but it is a pleasure for me to introduce Dafi tonight. He's one of my favorite designers and printers, and I don't really say that lightly. I guess for a quick introduction, he's from Switzerland, an area called Glarus. He has a really cool studio, which I've been to. It's in the mountains, and I don't know, maybe we'll see some photos or something like that. I don't know, there's mountains and rivers, it's very Swiss. And he's got a lot of really great type, which I'm sure we'll see some of. And the thing that I really like about Dafi's work is that it's designed, how can I say this? He's a letterpress printer, and he's a very good letterpress printer, but he works in a way that's different than what most contemporary people, designers, think of when they think of letterpress printing. He doesn't smash the type into the paper. A lot of times it's hard to even tell that it's letterpress printing, and to me that's kind of like the purest form of letterpress printing, because that's how it was for hundreds and hundreds of years. But a lot of people don't practice that these days. For various reasons. I think some of those reasons are because it's very hard to do that and do it convincingly. So that is very impressive to me. Dafi's work, that impresses me a lot. But the other thing I like about his work is that when you look at it, it looks very contemporary. It doesn't look like he's mimicking old letterpress styles. He's very much working in kind of modernist Swiss sensibility that would be just as impressive even if it wasn't letterpress printed, and even if it wasn't letterpress printed very well. But when you put all these things together and you see that also the design's really great, the printing's really great, I just think his work is really great. So, I don't know, he has a new book that I'm assuming you're selling here. Definitely worth it. I bought it the minute I even heard that it was going to exist. So, yeah, I'll let him do the rest of talking about himself.
Hello, my name is Dafi Kühne. I'm 34 years old still. Will be 35 soon. I studied visual communications in Zurich, at Zurich University of the Arts. I have a wife who's with me, and I have two little daughters that are back in Switzerland, and we are enjoying our trip without the kids for the first time, so this is really cool. And it is really cool that I am able to speak for you tonight. I'm really happy to be here. So, I'm going to be talking about my work, mainly my poster work. So I'm going to show you some of my projects, and if you have questions, always stop me and ask whenever. It's fine to interrupt me at any point. And in the second part, I'm going to be talking about my new book, that was published with Lars Mu publishers last fall. And I have some copies with me that you can go through after the talk, and I've also brought some posters with me that you can go through after the talk, because I think it's really, really important with my work that you also see the physical copies, because these projectors are great, but it's just not the same as if you see them live. So, as I said, I studied visual communications in Zurich. During my studies, I did an internship with Hat Show Print in Nashville, Tennessee, where we printed posters with traditional wood type. And we worked very analog, very fast, and very production oriented. So everything we did was planned to be on press within a couple of minutes, basically. Which was good for me to learn as a, let's say, designer of the digital age, but also you work with all the restrictions that the technique has, but working in such a traditional shop, it's also important that you work within the style that they have, but the style is definitely retro. So when I came back from my internship, I wanted to do the exact opposite. So for my diploma project, I worked with the laser cutter. So I developed new form making with the digital production technique. That will be letterpress printed at the end. After my diploma, I started my own studio called Baby Ink Twice, and I'm producing mainly posters, but also, let's say, invitation cards or little magazines or brochures for various clients from the fields, let's say. It's all more or less in the cultural field. It's arts, music, theaters, architecture, but I also do posters for products. And I use different processes, but one thing that, or one rule that is really essential is that everything I do at my studio at least goes through one of my presses. So there might be offset printing involved, but at the end, one hit is definitely going to go through one of my presses. In my presentation, you will see a lot of equipment. I have about between 20 and 30 tons of letterpress equipment in my studio. Just one thing you have to be aware of is that in Switzerland, letterpress equipment is worth nothing. So all the equipment that I have in my studio, I basically saved from scrap. So it's not that if you want to buy 30 tons of letterpress equipment in the US, it will cost you a ton of money, literally. So, and in Switzerland it's different because that stuff is still around and nobody wants that. And if somebody wants a lot of money for something, I'm not going to be the person buying it. So I built up my studio. I started while I was still a student, I bought my first press. And I built it up just one piece after another, and mainly like for nothing. This is one of my posters. Shake Your Bones, it's Voodoo Rhythm Dance Night. I'm going to show you a short video about the production. So what I'm showing you is basically the design development. So this is not production. I was proving some wood type, and now I used the wax coating machine to wax the letters on the back.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I'm cutting them into pieces, and then I rearrange them on another piece to produce my layout. I'm not doing it that fast normally, so it's a little bit sped up. So then I waxing these lines again, and then I make the layout. This is what I would present to the client, and then once the client approves that, I'm going to build the form on the press. Also, this is not going that fast. I am pretty fast though, but not that fast. Once I've proved that form, I'm making correction marks on that print. So I adjust the kerning, and I would make ready to make all the parts of the old wood type print perfectly. I was printing this poster on newsprint, so very thin, 54 grams per square meter paper. Then I'm proving the smaller type lines that I want to print between the big type. I'm just hand proving this. It's really just to also adjust the kerning later. So I'm making the correction marks. Also, this goes a little slower normally, and I'm adjusting the kerning with physical material. I can only do positive kerning. If I want to do negative kerning, I have to cut down some letters, which I sometimes have to do.
How big is the press?
This press is 64 by 89 centimeters. It's something like, I would say, 34 inches in the longer dimension. Okay, we don't have to watch this because we can't see it in the presentation. So that's the final poster. The poster should look like a skeleton, basically, that is dancing. Shake Your Bones was the topic of it. And it should have something like that twist dancing shapes. I think I printed something like 150 of these. Well, 159. This was a poster series for a Swiss cheese. The Swiss cheese is called Schafziger. It's one of the oldest cheese you would find. Its recipe is documented 550 years ago. It's been documented 550 years ago. So they had the 550 years jubilee, so we would make these posters. This cheese is probably one of the most smelly cheese you find. So it's very intensive. Either way, you love it or you hate it. There's not much between that. So what I did, I found old photo plates from the old catalogs. This is the oldest packaging they had. They would just basically wrap the cheese within a cloth. And then they used something like aluminum foil to wrap it in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And then this is the newest packaging, which is not my favorite, but it's just what they have right now. It looks a bit like a yogurt cup. So the idea of that poster was that I want to show the fireworks of the smell and the taste of it. So we scanned the original prints I made from the original photo plates I got from the archive from that company, and I blew them up and made it bigger photo plates because the posters are quite big. The oldest packaging just has a little sparks, fireworks coming out. Then we have the second newest, and the newest is the complete thing. They would send these posters to clients, and then they would sell these posters at the Jubilee, and also at the, just clients could still buy them now. It was, the paper was black, so I printed the photo plates with silver ink, because silver ink is much more covering than white ink. This is a 4-point metal typeface. Über You goes Übersee. Über You is a name of a Swiss punk band. It's that weird language mix between Über, which is a German word, obviously, means over. You is English, obviously. And they did a tour where they went to South America. And so we made that weird language mix also in the Übersee, which would have been something like Übersee in German means overseas in English. So it's the same language mix they have in the name. We did it in on the poster. We were not allowed to use the cities or really the clubs where they were playing, because one thing was they didn't know when they organized it, and the other thing is part of it was illegal. So we just mentioned the names of the countries, and they would just add something somewhere, playing tonight or whatever. And they also sold the posters on the tour. I would like to.
What's the typeface, Dafi?
Well, I'm gonna show it to you in the video. It's an old wood typeface, and I'm pretty sure it was De Little in York, UK, who did the typeface, because the size was not in our measurements. So it was in pica. We used Cicero in continental Europe, but the type height was correct for our presses. So I think somebody ordered it in York, but they didn't scale it to the right size, but they could send the type to the right type height. So what I did for this poster was, and I'm going to show you the video, I borrowed, buying wood type is much less expensive than it is in the States, but it's also hard to get big typefaces in Switzerland. And if an old printmaker has them, they don't want to sell them. So they say, I'm going to keep it, you know, I'm a little nostalgic about it. So I said, I'm going to borrow the typeface and I'm going to just copy it. And you'll see how that works in the video. So first I printed the split fountain. So I mix all the colors I use for the split fountain, and then I apply the ink on the rollers. Through the oscillating cylinder, it will give us the split fountain. I first printed the frame. This was a piece of laser cut MDF wood. So I printed the frame first, then I inverted the split fountain, and I printed basically the big surface in the center, the full block. Then I go to my pantograph. The pantograph is basically yeah, you can copy any form by following a shape. So I borrowed the original wood type from that old guy, and I said, I'm not even going to print it. I'm only going to follow the forms, because the old wood type was really, really warped, so you couldn't print it in perfect quality. So I organized some pear wood. Pear wood is the traditional wood we used in Switzerland for making wood type. I'm following the form, and I'm going to make a one-to-one copy. I cut this to, I think, 54 Cicero. So that means it was on pica size, but I cut it on our size, body size. So I have a complete set of that typeface that is brand new. And I can give back the original typeface to the old guy, and I said, I didn't even print it. So that's the last run with the black typeface. So that's the poster. So the old typeface, you couldn't print it in this quality, that sharp, because it was really, really warped. So that's the cool thing about having that pantograph. I can copy any form I want. Again, the pantograph, I bought it for $150, so it's not an expensive machine. A guy wanted to get rid of it, and I just took it. All I had to do is to move it. Well, not really.
Not 1984.
No. I use this sometimes. So with this one, I took an original with me. So just so you see, the projector is not really doing the job that well. It's not bad. You can see there is a very light tone-in-tone second layer of information. I mixed that ink to print that red information. I mixed that ink for 4 hours, and I had to let it dry between that. So I mixed, I had to let it dry. I wrote out the recipe of it. So it was really hard. First I thought I could only use, it is red paper obviously, so I thought I could only use transparency resin to just make that. But it was much too strong. So basically what I did, I had to mix the exact paper tone, and then I print that, and that makes it a little more glossy and a little darker there. So I was asked to make a poster for these 2 Swiss bands, Roy and the Devil's Motorcycle and Five Abach. And the guy who organized the concert said, "Can you make a real Swiss poster?" I mean, they are Swiss bands, but they play something like blues rock and roll. They sing in English, so I don't think it's real Swiss. But let me try that. So I make the most Swiss poster I can do for you. So I used a Helvetica poster that is basically it's called Helvetica plakat. It's a cut that didn't exist in the original digital version of Helvetica because it's something between Helvetica Bold and Helvetica Black. So I used all the typeface was wood type, and I used that plus symbol as a Swiss cross, the flag, or the Swiss passport also looked like that. It had as a Swiss cross. The series is called raclette. Raclette is a Swiss meal where we would serve cheese melted in these little sockets. So I found an old photo plate from a raclette oven, and I printed it on the back because the series is called like that. You see some of the letters I had to cut. You see here I did, for example, I did some negative kerning. Normally, if I do negative kerning, I don't want to cut down the original letters because they're original. So I cut a copy, and then I can do whatever with them.
Is that also Fairwood?
That's all Fairwood, yeah. Well, for example, that accent, I didn't have it, so I copied the lower part of an I, and then I hand cut the accent, and then just put it on top. And also had to negative kern that.
What kind of saw do you use for kerning?
That's a very specific question. I use an FHE. FHE is the Swiss maker of proof presses and saws. They're very precise. All right, don't look at this. I'm doing a program for a club, cultural club that organizes concerts, and I'm pretty free with what I'm doing for them. They regularly get emails saying, "Hey, I lost whatever at the club. Did you find anything?" And I saw some of these emails, so I said, we're going to do this as the topic for the next post. So in the top left corner it says, "Dear place," I mean it's the name of the club. So, hey, I might have more details on that. Yeah. Hello, I'm dear whatever association. I have a question. At the last Saturday, on the 25th of January, I lost my favorite beanie with a golden Soviet star on top of it at the Bayansky Ball concert. Did you find anything? This is basically announcing the concert. So we sent out the programs in, let's say, November, and it was announcing the concert in January. It gets a little more abstract. Sai Baba stole my heart. Could I get it back? It was a super 1A quality. It's announcing the Sai Baba concert. I lost, at the Monsters concert, I lost parts of my hearing. But it was worth it. Yeah. And then for all the lost items, just come by, and our lost and found department is always filled with surprises. So was this poster, I was casting all the type on this poster with a Ludlow caster. So the Ludlow caster, the typeface I used is called Tempo, and it's basically, Ludlow didn't have a license for Futura, so they said we're going to do our own Futura, and it was Tempo, but it is really, really not consistent. All the cuts are a little different. So I like that, obviously. So I used all these different styles of Tempo for that poster. I was doing this poster while I was working in Richmond, Virginia, so I didn't have my own equipment. I just found a letterpress print, or let's say an offset print shop that still had the old equipment somewhere in the back. And they said, well, you can use it and we'll print it with you. So I used all their equipment.
And you wrote on the copy as well?
Yeah, I'm working on the copy with many posters, also the review poster that I showed you before, and also on that one. With the club, I'm really free with what I'm doing. With other clients, I'm discussing more about the content of the copy. Let's say with the Swiss cheese company, you're not that free, but I still think it's my, it's part of my job to discuss the content as well, because I cannot make a good poster without a good content. And normally what you get from the client might not be the best content. So you need to talk to him if it's really the right message for the target audience, and if it's the right way we were going to express this. This was also a program for the cultural club. I printed this poster with Target kitchen magnets. I had to go to 9 Target stores around Richmond. It was basically a day of driving around to find enough magnets to do this poster. So you see the magnets. Obviously, these magnets only exist side correct. So I couldn't mirror them, so I had to just rotate them with symmetrical letters like this, like an M is no problem. An E, you can turn it upside down, then the how do you call it, the crossbar is a little too low, but it's okay, you can still read it as an E. But there are other letters like an N or R, you can never flip them, so I had to find other ways to do it. So I was also printing this on in Richmond, in that old print shop. We run it on a 2-tour production press from the 40s. So they haven't used this press in a while. I just went in and I said, can we use that press? They said, well, it's functional, so okay, let's do it. The guy was super happy to run it. You see these, oh, sorry, let me go back a tiny bit. You see these blue flames. This press has gas flames to dry the prints. So they would light them up and the prints run over the gas flames. That will heat up each sheet a tiny bit. The whole stack will stay warm for a couple of hours because it will save the warmth. So, but it's quite risky, especially with thin paper. So I was there to stop the gas once it started burning, and it did it, but it was not dangerous. So I asked the guy, can we print with refrigerator magnets? And he said, well, he hasn't done it before, but we can do it. So
Was the right type?
no, it was after I was working the wood board up. Then the smaller type on this poster, I was also casting with Ludlow. So with Ludlow, you hand set the matrices in a composing stick, and you see what I want to cast in the front. You can read it in the front, and you see the casting form is on the back, the mold. And
There's some Ludlow here.
there's some Ludlow here. I mean, some Ludlow matrices, but not a Ludlow caster. If Ludlow can only cast lines that are about 22 pica long, and so if you want to cast longer lines, you have to separate the lines with these, I don't know how to call them in English, so with these pieces. So I'm casting 3 pieces. This is the Ludlow caster. It's only about that big. It was the first time I was working on a Ludlow. You see the molten ller. It's going to be pressed into the form, and it's real time, so about, I don't know, 5 seconds later you get the cooled down piece. Well, the printers tell you it's cooled down, but it's not really. But after a while you get used to it, and I see myself handing out pieces when I cast Ludlow to students, and I say, it's cooled down, and then no, it's not. So you get used to it. It was the first time I was working on the Ludlow there in Richmond, Virginia. When I got home to Switzerland, I obviously wanted one of these. I found 2 of them, plus the type that I needed for 100 Swiss francs. That's $100. So it's just, that stuff is just around. Then you can connect these lines. So with these wedges, you can really separate the line within a word. It doesn't matter where you can connect them later. And then you lock them in a form. We didn't lock them all straight. We locked them in angles, so we had to cut wedges out of wood to print them like crooked. And that's the last pass through the press. So it was 3 runs of the magnets, because you see some of the letters are doubled up, and I'm going to say something about that. So because I had the problem of some letters that are reversed on the poster, sorry, I thought I want to make this the topic of the design, so I want to double up some letters. For example, the first word on the first line, the tunnel with the 3 N's. And the R's that are reversed looks like Cyrillic almost. So I wanted to make this the topic. So I also doubled up some of the letters that were not reversed to just make it weirder. Obviously, you don't have the umlaut in the U, so I just cut out a piece with the Swiss Army knife. A poster program for the Cultural Club. On one program I did for them, many shows got canceled after I printed the poster. So I said, with the next poster, I'm going to cancel all the shows. Bon Jovi is canceled. Rihanna is moved to a bigger place. Snoop Dogg is too expensive. Roxette is, they split up. Bruno Mars is moved to a different spot. Shakira canceled the tour. Aerosmith is not going to happen, and Lady Gaga is in rehab. Then there is always an alternative, but we have whatever they have. With all the big names, there's a typo because I don't want to get into trouble with the management. So it was a hand-cut linoleum for the big type. And it was metal type, hand-set metal type for the small type. You see, the further down the small type gets, I have some letters that are not italic. Maybe you see it somewhere. Not on this one. Yeah, for example here. So I didn't have enough type. So normally I count the letters before I do a project, and I did it with this too, but I knew I have, I don't know, maybe 3 T's. I'm missing 3 T's. So in the italic version, so the decision happens before I do it, because if I did it while I was typesetting, I could get in really, really bad trouble. But here it was like, okay, 3 T's, I'm just going to use the relevant ones. If I have to cut a typeface with linoleum, you probably don't choose a modern typeface like this. I mean, it's a hassle to cut all the hairlines and the immediate, or how do you call them, the bracket serifs. So, but with this one, this was the idea that I give myself a hard job and make it harder and make it look hard. I got asked to do a poster that would go to a shop in Zurich just to sell the poster. So can you do a poster that we can sell at our shop? Well, this is really, really open. I mean, I can do a poster that is for selling, but normally I get something like a client coming in and they want something a little bit more specific than that. So I thought, like, what would be a poster that you could sell? Probably a poster that somebody would hang up. And where would you hang up a poster? I like to think that you'd hang up a poster in your kitchen. Maybe not your bedroom, or definitely not your bathroom, but maybe in the kitchen. And what kind of poster can you hang up in the kitchen? That's, for me, is a sausage poster. So I worked on the sausage. And then I hand cut the sausage.
What's the material?
That's linoleum. Yeah. And I printed it in 2 runs, in 2 split fountains. Today, it says today, Metzger is a party in the fall where we would eat sausages, basically. Blood sausage, liver sausage, snout, Wiener sausage, bacon, bratwurst, tail, tongue, ham, shank, a little sauerkraut, and very little potatoes.
Where's the mustard?
We don't need mustard. So I wanted that. Basically, I designed that poster with Akzidenzgrotesk. I made a lot of sketches on how I can modify that typeface so it looks like sausage. So it is really fat already. This was a series for Swiss television. They were doing a series where they had bands playing in a little trailer underneath a bridge, and they would play acoustic concerts in the trailer, And the first band they did this show with had a poster I did for them. So they hung up the poster on the door of the trailer, and then they went with the camera on that door with the poster, and then they went in to see the band playing there. And then they decided to make it a couple of times, 8 times basically, and they said, well, we need a poster for each band. And I said, then they came to me, because they knew the poster was from me, and they said, we need a poster for 8 bands, each a poster, and we only need 1 copy. And I said, I cannot do 1 copy. I can, I don't know, draw this poster with a pen or whatever, but printing means reproduction, and I want to print a couple of them. So I said, we're going to print 20 of each. I'm going to give them 5 of each, and I'm going to sell the rest. So I did, because I couldn't charge them a huge amount. It was paid, it was okay, but I had to do some extras to make it work. So I printed all these big letters with chipboard. So I hand cut the chipboard. It's like some ller, bit tuner, failed teachers, Benji Bonus, Dr. Farfisa, Ovo, Sebas, Boots. You see that the texture on the letters is from the chipboard. I could print it full covering if I want to, but with this, I like that little distress on the letters. And you see it's not perfectly cut. It's cut with cutters and scissors. But it's very fast, and it's good for small editions because chipboard just doesn't cost it. It's so cheap. I'm just going to show a couple of posters without representing the full project. This was a poster for Slanted magazine for Germany, and their just most recent issue is called Helsinki. Poster for a DJ. In Switzerland, we have the expression January hole. That's what we call, if you're broke in January, you call it, I'm in the January hole. Just after Christmas, when you spend a lot of money, you're in the January hole. But I'm not saying hole here, I'm only saying January, and the rest is, you see. Dada Gaga. So, if Dada turns gets too abstract, it might get Gaga. Back to the print. A cultural program. Dead Ghosts. This one is really hard to read. I don't know if you can read the big typeface. This is a D-E-A-D, ghost. WTF.
That's hand cut.
That's hand cut, Leon, yeah. That's a weather prediction, rain, rain, spring, rain, cloudy, rain, rain, spring. Zwischensaison, that means between the season. So it's an art exhibition that's happening over the summer, where normally there would be no art exhibition. So for this poster, this is wood type, and I didn't trace the full letters to make the copies. I only traced this part of it to double it up. So it's really fast and something you couldn't do with traditional wood type because you would have to cut the letters down. Series I did on newsprint. The paper I'm printing this on was 50 years old. I bought just an archive full of newsprint.
The color in the center of those, that's just opaque.
No,
Another piece of
these are
paper on top.
stickers.
Okay.
So I used neon or daylight color stickers and I printed letterpress on top of them. Yes, stuck them on the. Yeah, I needed something that was really like a new layer.
I was going to be really impressed if you got that much opacity. But
No,
it's very cool.
that's hard. Why use wood if chipboard is just as good? That was a workshop and a presentation at Hamilton Wood Type in Twin Rivers, Wisconsin. Hamilton is one of the, or was the biggest wood type manufacturer in the States, probably in the world. And it's kind of a provocation if you go there and say, why use wood if chipboard is just as good? But it was really an irony in itself because the type I used for this was wood type. The only thing I printed with chipboard was the question mark in the frame.
What is that last one you said?
This one? Los Rücktisauraus. Oh, that's a hard one to translate. You can be a pig sometimes, it says, but please on the dance floor. So it means this was the government asked the club that I make the programs for to do something about the kids walking home and being noisy and destroying things on their way back home. So we can say whatever we want to, but we can say it to the target audience that we're talking to. And we said we cannot write just a very formal letter. So we said it's okay to be a pig sometimes, but please stay. You can do it on the dance floor, but not on your way back. Nachtschicht means night shift. It was a workshop where we printed over the night. The thing is, Schicht, this part of the word Schicht also means layering. So this is why I layered the background.
Are those rules or is that chipboard?
These were vertical chipboard lines or stripes that I put vertically into the press. And then this was metal type, and this I think was photopolymer on top.
And the type is just wedged into the chipboard.
Yes, right. Well, I didn't print it in the same printer. Hello, I love you. Print pong we played ping pong with a printing press. The net itself is a ping pong net that I used on press. A series I did for a furniture designer in Zurich. Chair, table, shelves. Fall weather. Industrial movies. And monsters. Another poster for industrial movies. Sophie Hunger is a Swiss jazz musician. She won a lot of prizes, but she's been criticized a lot, so as well, for winning so many prizes. So I torn her into pieces. I didn't know if she understood that. copy says my posters, and if you read through it, it says because my kids don't eat my posters. So it was a poster sale at my studio, and I wanted to make sure people know that it is a poster sale. I'm not just white wine drinking at my studio. No more sleeping or never sleep again. So much about my posters. Now in 2014, Reto Kaduf, who is the editor of the book, he came up to me and he said, we need to do something about your work. We should publish a book so people can see your work, and we should do a book. Lars Mu, once he found out about that, was interested in publishing the book. So we found, like, the three of us were like the perfect team to do it. The only thing we were missing back then to begin with was money. So we found different institutions and private sponsors. For example, Museum für Gestaltung in Zurich is one of the biggest poster collections in the world. They sponsored all the reproductions of the posters. Basically, when we started, we were facing one huge challenge. That was that we had a stack of posters, like the stack that is on the table up there in the front. We had a stack of posters on the table, but we needed to do reproductions of them. I printed some of these posters in 10 colors, and we didn't have any digital version of that. So Zurich Museum für Gestaltung sponsored the photos. They have a super cool room where they do the photos. They have basically a vacuum wall where they can just vacuum the posters to the wall. Then they have a little train and a tripod on that train, and then they can focus it. Then they have lights, and they have color control stripes. Is that the right word? Well, to make sure that they're all correct. But then you have RGB data, which is basically still not worth much to print. You change that into CMYK, but then they just don't look as they look in reality. So there was a lot of work from the lithographer to make these posters like ready for the reproduction. We proved each poster in the book at least 2 times, some of them 4 times on the real production press. So the press is something like 40 inches in the longer dimension, I think. So 70 by 100 centimeters is the sheets. It prints 15,000 prints an hour. The machine is basically as big as this room, a little less wide, but it's as long as this room. They had to prove all the posters. They basically run one sheet. I mean, and some of the proofs we had to do them in 8 colors. So they put in 8 offset plates. They print, let's say, 10 sheets, and then they clean the machine. And we did this 2 to 4 times for all the things. So it took us forever. The lithographer had to add the spot colors. If you think back to that Überview poster where you have these split fountains, we couldn't print them in 4 colors. We needed spot colors in that. I think this was printed with 4 spot colors. But the computer doesn't know where to print these spot colors. It's the lithographer's work to adjust the file and give it a new layer and say this needs to be neon green, this needs to be neon pink, whatever. So this was a ton of work. The lithographer, she came to me, she was from the publisher, and she came to me with a document like that. And I was just like, I don't know, I see it's the whole book. But this is basically the order, page 1, going down to page 152. And she said, on this sheet, we use, or let's say on this we use CMYK. On this one, we use CMYK plus 806, that's a daylight color. So we used 5 colors on that one. On this one, we used CMYK plus 4 neon spot colors. On some of them we use 2 hits of black because offset black, as you know, is just not black. It's medium gray or something like that. So if you want to print something that is really dark, you need at least 2 hits of black. So she said, you need to move all the neon colored posters on this sheet. And I said, no, I want them in an interesting order. And I don't want people to go through the book and realize, oh, here are all the neon posters, here are all the black and white posters. I want them in an interesting order. So we had a ton of discussions when she said, okay, just move this one over here. And I said, well, possible, but then I need this one down there, whatever. You see, this is, for example, a proof. So we proved sections of each poster on a big sheet to know if the data is fine to be printed like that. This was the printer.
Do they get annoyed by you and that's what they
Well, to be honest, that huge machine broke down twice while we did the thing. They were just not used to use that many spot colors, and they have so many, I don't know, sensors to measure whatever, and if one of these sensors is not correct, it just doesn't detect that there's a plate in there, whatever. We planned, I think 7 hours to do all the press checks, and we were there for 2 days. So it was, they liked it, that a young guy was so interested, but they were just not used to it. And they get nervous because we have 20 minutes for this. And I say well, if it's not good, we're not going to print it. And then there was the boss in the back, and I go, okay, give him another 10 minutes.
So who is the printer?
It's a printer called Kösel in Kempten, that's in Germany. It's just about 2 hours from Zurich. Printing in Germany is much cheaper, so you can get better quality for your money, basically. I mean, the quality is the same in Switzerland, but it's just so expensive that we couldn't afford to make it that complicated. And the quality is just, we chose this place because we knew the quality was good. Let me go back one. So the structure of the book basically has 3 parts. It has some introduction text. One is by Professor Rudolf Barmettler, who was my professor in Zurich, at Zurich University of the Arts, and he is describing how I develop my style and what I'm doing. And then there's a second text by David Shields, who I worked with at the VCU in Richmond, Virginia, and he is describing where he would see my work in an international context, basically. Then let me grab one. Then there's the poster part in the book that is basically always a poster on the right side and some description on the left side. I wanted this to be like a catalog that you could really fast go through and you say oh, I want to see whatever, here it is. So, and then after the poster part, there's a studio chat between the editor, Reto Karuf, and me. And that's basically an interview. In the whole book, there are black and white photographs of my studio, and they're just spread out all over the book. It was also kind of hard to make the black and white photos are printed CMYK as well to make them a little more intense. But if you do color corrections on the same sheet with the black and white photos on, they might get a little red or a little blue, so it's hard to keep them all black and white. So then, the book has an acetate dust jacket, and I printed them all in my studio. We did 1,000 German books, and we did 2,000 English books, so it's 2 versions of the book. And both versions, because I'm kind of censoring parts on the cover copy, I had to move them a little bit between the German version and the English version. So I printed these. It's basically pieces of furniture, of letterpress furniture, that I bumped up to censor some parts of the cover. Then all the covers themselves, they are printed letterpress at my studio. Let me move this. So it's metal type here and wood type on the front. I cut the wood type. The face is called normal grotesque from Haas Type Foundry. They didn't make it bigger than 72 points, so I scanned them and made copies from wood type. So it's probably the only normal grotesque that exists in that size, because the face doesn't exist in digital. The book is a half linen binding. Is that the correct expression? So it has a stripe of linen in the back. Normally, if you construct this, you would have the linen going until here somewhere, and then you would cover that with a piece of paper that is basically the cover. But if you do that, you get a little step here because the linen is thicker, and then you cover that. And we didn't like that step here. And we did samples, and then they said they can press that down after the production, but we were not happy with that. So what we basically did after a ton of discussions, maybe something else, if the cover itself, I mean the material is just chipboard in here, right? So the chipboard is gray and the linen is black. If you cover this with a white paper, you can see the black shine through because it's different than the gray. So we were discussing that as well with the discussion of the linen. So the final discussion was we have to do a full linen cover and then wrap that up with the paper. So it's complicated. It's a lot of material that you basically waste, but it makes the white cover white. Basically, the whole process from working on the design, working on finances, which was a big part of it, went from 2014 until, let's say, June 2016. Then, in the meantime, we had some sponsors that didn't want to do it at the end, and then we had to find some new sponsors. So basically, at the end, we also we didn't want to make a Kickstarter, but we needed to do something to polish up the finances a little bit. So we did a limited edition of the book as well. And I'm going to be talking about the limited edition in a second. So the books were here in November, and so far we're still super happy about it. I didn't find any mistake in there yet. This is a photo of the limited edition, but I'll be talking about it in a second. So the regular book just doesn't come with the folded poster in there. The hardest thing is if you compare the original posters next to the book, obviously. I mean, this is really, really hard, but you will see it after that, and I think it's quite okay. So as I said, we did a limited edition. I printed this poster, which is kind of my personal manifesto, if you want so. So some rules that I gave myself when I started my studio. Well, I didn't write them down like that, but I always had these rules in mind. Some of them I wrote down. I wanted to make something like a diagram that is kind of not really functional. So you could, it's kind of functional, but it is not. I'm going to show a little bit of the process of the, that's the last video. So first I'm making the color adjustments. I'm writing down something like a recipe, what I mixed in there. I mean, it's not digitally mixed, I just mix it like that, so I have to note down how I did it. The first thing I was doing was printing the full blocks. The poster is printed in a total of 8 print runs. That was the first. Two. Three. Four. Then I made the diagram, and the diagram was made with raglets. So these raglets are all the same thickness, one Cicero, basically one pica. And I bumped up a board so I could mount all the raglets on the board and they would be perfectly type height. So I made the diagram with these elements that we use to print the form or to as the furniture. Then I went through my archive of photo plates. Just some dusty old cases. Some photo plates that would make that weird diagram character. I have to say I didn't make the design on press. I made the design, I made sketches, I made scans, and I worked with that. Here I was just building the final form. And then I was facing a huge problem. On this poster, I needed something like 590 letters. But the typeface I wanted to use, I didn't find that many letters. Because if you want to use 590 letters on the poster, you need something like 1,000, a set of 1,000 to have enough letters. So I was thinking about buying the ller matrices. I could buy them in Canada, but they didn't have the umlauts, which I didn't need for this poster, but if I want to use it later, I need the umlauts. So that was no option. I found a guy in Germany, he could cast something similar, a similar typeface on a monotype caster, but he wanted something like 800 euros. That's too much for a poster like this. I need a better way. Just for so I have enough type for this poster, but later I cannot really use it, it's too expensive. So I developed this technique, which I borrowed, again, a set of that type, but it was too small, and I cast, or I make a mold with silicone. So this is silicone, and I'm casting over the lead type. Once it is dry, I can pull out the teeth. And I have a mold that I then can use to cast in with my 3 hands. I can cast the resin. So this is plastic, basically. And I get plastic type. So this is not a traditional technique. I developed that technique for this poster. And it worked. And then once I have it, I just typeset like with lead type. Well, if you ask me if it is worth it, if I could have had it for $800 or whatever, and I was casting for 2 weeks here, so with the development of it. But now I have the technique ready, and I could just use it whenever I need to.
I guess that those individual pieces probably don't print that long, or how do they wear out pretty quickly?
Well, I had some letters on the cover, on the back cover, that I had to cast like that as well. This was I think a 20-point typeface, and I printed them 3,000 times. So I'm not too worried about that.
Is there an easy way to count characters?
Yeah, there's software. So
That breaks it down? How many
yeah, it breaks it
A's?
down. Yeah, exactly. You can find websites that does that, and this is really something I use very often.
Yeah.
So I need to know how many A's, how many lowercase A's I have, for sure.
What did you use to lock up the lines that are on angles?
On this one, I think I used plaster or something like that. I always use different things. If it's big blocks that I bring into an angle, I can use magnets. But with this, I use plaster. And then the posters came with the limited edition of the book. So much about my work and about the book. I have books with me. They are normally $49, but we have a special discount. They're $39 tonight. And I even have some few limited editions with me. If somebody's interested in that. And I have posters. I can also sell some posters if you're interested in that. And I was very happy to be here. Thank you very much.